On this video, I'm going to show you a super simple and inexpensive way to mount a large rooftop tent on the back of your Gladiator. The system I'm using today isn't Gladiator specific, but rather a universal setup from AA Products. It retails for around $220, or at least that's how much I paid when I ordered it. I will put the link to the rack that I'm using in the description of the video. Yes, this is technically just an aluminum ladder rack, but after searching for an easy and inexpensive way to get a long rooftop tent on the bed of my Gladiator, I thought this was worth giving it a try. Assembly is fairly straightforward, and it only took me about an hour. Everything bolts together, so there is no drilling required. I don't really have much of an issue with how the components came in terms of quality and everything being there, but I don't like that you have to pair two pieces of the crossbar setup together. I'm assuming AA Products did this for shipping cost, but I don't really like it. My last AA Products rack that I purchased a few years ago had single crossbars, and while I don't think this is structurally weaker, it does mean that if you want to cut down the 70-inch wide bars, you're going to have to do one at a time versus just cutting a single bar like I did on my last one. These don't stick out too far past the cab of the Gladiator, but they're a little wide. Now the bars do have a fixed position of 27.6 inches high. This was something that I double checked before ordering the rack, and one of the reasons it was so important is I wanted to see if I could have the tent on and have my front roof rack mounted as well, so I could put extra gear up there. Once the rack was in place, I ran up to Low Range 4x4 here in Wilmington, North Carolina, where I had my iKamper Skycamp 3.0 shipped. We got it on the Jeep and secured in place using the provided iKamper clamps, which worked perfectly fine on the AA Products crossbars. Given this is a universal rack, AA Products states that it can hold up to 800 pounds evenly distributed. Now this is a static weight figure, not a dynamic one. I don't know what the dynamic is. I'm gonna guess it's significantly less, but they haven't released that number. So I do want to talk a little bit about road handling and road noise with this configuration. Now I will tell you, having a roof rack, you're going to get a little bit of wind whistle, and adding the setup in the back with the iKamper, it didn't really make that big of a difference. And I've actually driven this Gladiator with the roof rack on and with it off with the iKamper in the back, and it is noticeable how much less wind noise it makes when it's just the iKamper in the back. I think they did a pretty good job with the arrow on that, so it's not a big whistle all the time. Those iKampers have like a little bit of lip in the front, and it seems like it helps. I don't really get a lot of wind noise. This Jeep isn't terribly quiet in general, but wind noise isn't a huge factor for it. You notice it, but I wouldn't make it oh man, it's not a livable configuration. In terms of handling, that's what was more interesting to me. So this tent weighs 165 pounds, which isn't really heavy for a 4-person tent and isn't that extreme in the world of rooftop tents in general. So that was a positive. And I kind of figured, all right, Jeep's probably going to notice it, it'll sway a bit more. And to counteract that, what I did is I turned up my compression adjusters on my Fox 3.0 shocks. And that does seem to help cut down on some of the sway. That being said, I actually don't have a rear sway bar on this Jeep. I broke one of the mounts off and I never replaced it. And so if I did, it would obviously handle a little bit better. Also, it's worth noting that I have a Rock Crawler 4.5-inch lift, and I think the Rock Crawler coils run a little bit of a heavier rate and a little taller than some of the other coils, and it handles that extra weight of the tent really well. It doesn't seem like it's squatting it or it's too much. So I think that's worth mentioning. The last reason I think my Jeep handles so well and takes the tent without an issue is that I do have a set of Dynatrac Pro Rock XD60 axles that are 72.5 inches wide. So I've got a huge footprint on this vehicle that with a lot of unsprung weight. You put all that together with the shocks and everything else, and having this tent this high really doesn't make that big of a difference. So a couple quick installation notes. You may notice that the racks have been moved in just a bit, and I did that because I had these depressions in the top of the bed rail from an older AA Products low profile bed rack I had on here for quite a few years. For a new bed, new Gladiator, you're not going to need to do that. This was just something that I ended up having to do. Thankfully, it has not been an issue. I've taken this thing off-road and haven't seen any problems. We've camped with all 4 people up in the tent, haven't had a single issue, not seeing any cracks or any fatigue, not getting any weird creaks. So I feel fairly confident this works just fine. I don't think this is going to be something that I go extreme rock crawling in, and that's sort of the point of this system. Is I wanted something that was very lightweight, that was easy to take on and off. The tent is a little complicated to get on and off, but in terms of just removing these, it's pretty easy. And that's kind of why I wanted to make this video. So if you are like me and you're just looking for a place to, look, my kids want to go camping, I want to put a rooftop tent on my Jeep, but I don't want to have a $2,000 bed rack in the back and have it permanently set up like this, I think this is a really good option. I liked the AA Products low profile rack that I had when I had my ARB Simpson Series 3 tent. The problem is both of my kids want to camp they want to sleep in the rooftop tent, and I like sleeping in the rooftop tent, and my wife likes sleeping in the rooftop tent. So we wanted to get a rooftop tent that would fit all 4 people. That was the complexity of all of this. I was loving how low profile that other setup worked. It worked great. I took it on the Rubicon. We camped in it. Fantastic. That being said, I don't think I'll ever go back to a zipper style soft shell, tent. I love this hard shell. It's just so much easier to deploy and use and all that good stuff. And obviously ton more room over my old ARB Simpson Series 3. So big fan of that. And that was only a 15-pound weight bump from my old ARB tent, so not significant in that regard at all. The only thing I've done to this is I added those little cheeseball lights underneath so I could see, getting stuff in and out of the bed. That's really been it. I think if you're looking for an inexpensive rack system, that's not Gladiator specific, I think this is great. If you don't like the gap that it gives you, it's not that hard to cut these things down. It's all aluminum. You could basically chop saw that or use a Sawzall if you're steady. You just got to get a good level cut with it, drill it out, bring that down a little bit, and that would give you a tighter roof line with it. It doesn't really bother me. I do like that I can still use that roof rack that I have. It was built by U-Joint. That works out really well, and I think visually it looks good. So that's kind of my configuration, in a nutshell. Hopefully this was informative. If you do have any questions, just drop them in the comments. If you want to see some stuff I'm working on behind the scenes, you can always give me a follow at Ali Mansour Editor. I've got lots of stuff and adventures I'm going to be doing with this Jeep and some other Jeeps. So if you're interested in these videos, please consider subscribing to the channel. It absolutely helps. As always, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the trail. Take care.